Tonight, the Heat's revamped defense faces its toughest test yet.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg. I'm a credentialed Heat media member who covers this team every day. Solo without my usual co-host, David Ramil. I'm previewing tonight's game against the Thunder. Got the latest on Tyler Herro's status, whether Terry Rozier will play in this one, and how the Heat could pull off the upset. But first, before we jump in, want to announce the next Locked On Heat watch party, February 28th, at the Taurus in Coconut Grove for the Heat's game against the Pacers. Tip-off is at 8 p.m. Friday night. Come watch the game with us, hang out, take advantage of an extended happy hour. We're going to have a signature cocktail, great food, best of all, chance to hang out with us and hopefully watch a Heat win. Looking forward to seeing you there. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to here. We're going to start with the injury report because this is a doozy. For the Heat, Tyler Herro, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Duncan Robinson, and Terry Rozier. All of these guys are questionable. It's the entire backcourt except for Davion Mitchell right now. All of them questionable with a stomach illness. Kevin Love also out for personal reasons. But here's the deal with Miami's backcourt. Tyler Herro and Jaime Jaquez Jr. stayed back because of this stomach illness, did not fly with the team to Oklahoma City. The team at the time said there's a chance, depending on how they feel, that they can meet us on the road. I guess they were feeling good enough to meet them on the road because they are en route, as of this morning, to Oklahoma City to meet up the team. Still listed as questionable as of the latest injury report, recording this at 5:30. So you've got that part of this. And then, if that wasn't enough of a stomach illness bug going around, Terry Rozier and Duncan Robinson, who did travel with the team, missed shoot-around on Wednesday morning because they were feeling ill with what is reportedly the same stomach bug. So, look, it's flu season, I think, still technically. I guess this is going around the Miami Heat locker room right now. So it's just, this stomach illness thing is something to keep an eye on because if these four guys have caught it, you just wonder if somebody else is next here. So just something to keep in mind. But TBD on whether or not these guys are going to play. It sounds like maybe if Herro and Jaime felt good enough to get on a plane and go, that, you know, I would imagine that they would want to play in this game. They also play the Miami Heat. They play in Dallas on Thursday night. So even if they don't play in this game, they'll still join the team for their trip to Dallas, presumably. So maybe they play in that game. But back-to-back, your entire backcourt basically outside of Davion Mitchell dealing with a stomach bug right before the All-Star break. It's not ideal, especially because the Heat need to get some wins here because like we said earlier this week, there's a chance that they fall to 3 games under 500 going into the All-Star break. Not what you want. Here's the part that I want to talk about. Terry Rozier, though. Here's the interesting part. He sat out a shoot-around, did not attend shoot-around this morning because he was feeling with the stomach bug. This could be a chance for Erik Spoelstra to get a look at what things look like without Terry Rozier. And we have seen Erik Spoelstra do this before where somebody gets hurt, leaves the lineup. That old adage of you can't lose your job to injury, that don't fly with Spo. You can lose your job if you get hurt. Sometimes Spo, somebody will get hurt. He stumbles onto a new lineup. He likes it. There's some momentum. He likes the juju, whatever it is, and he just sticks with it. And next thing you know, you got hurt, and now you don't have any minutes. And as we covered on our last episode before this, it's getting to the point. It's probably at the point now where Erik Spoelstra, now that you have Davion Mitchell, another point guard in this rotation, this might be the point where you have to make the tough decision and have that tough conversation and bench Terry Rozier altogether. All of Miami's worst lineups are the lineups with Terry Rozier in it. They're being outscored by more than 7 points per 100 possessions with Terry Rozier on the court, and yet he's still playing the 5th most minutes on the team. And a big part of that is because the Heat didn't have any other point guards on the roster. Terry Rozier has already been moved out of the starting lineup. Let's remember that. Already moved out of the starting lineup pretty early. It was clear that was not working. And then Drew Smith was getting a lot of his minutes, especially late in games, and then Drew Smith gets hurt. And then Jimmy Butler is out of the lineup, and Erik Spoelstra feels like he needs he needs more ball handling in the rotation. Well, Jimmy Butler's traded. You got Wiggins. You got Mitchell, guys who could do stuff with the ball. And if Terry Rozier is going to be unavailable for this game, it's a little wonky because you also might be without a bunch of other guys, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson also. But if you can get maybe Hero back and you've got Davion Mitchell and Tyler Hero as your starting backcourt, maybe you still have Alec Burks coming off the bench, you could get a look at this rotation without Terry Rozier. And if you're Erik Spoelstra, maybe you say, you know what, maybe that's something we want to go with. The winning and the losing part of this, considering all the injuries and what Miami's dealing with here and how good the Thunder are, I wouldn't base the decision going forward on whether or not the Heat win or lose this game. I just want to see qualitatively what those lineups look like. Because I really like that first 5 to 8 minute stretch against Boston with Davion Mitchell, Alec Burks, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, Kel'el Ware, with that starting group, the new starting group. Assuming Hero taking that Burks spot and assuming Hero might play tonight. So if that's the starting group that Miami gets, because those guys, no stomach bugs except for Tyler Hero. If you can get that starting group out there, and then we look at a bench unit that doesn't include Terry Rozier, and you're looking at a rotation that doesn't include Terry Rozier, and maybe you're a little competitive, a little bit feistier than a lot of people, including Las Vegas, expect you to be in this game, I think that's interesting. So maybe not this game necessarily, considering all the injuries, but this couple of games, maybe after the All-Star break, there's a chance here where we can get an extended look with a rotation without Terry Rozier, and maybe that's just the chance, the look that Erik Spoelstra needed to maybe stick with this. You acquired a ball handler at the trade deadline. Maybe there's an opportunity now to move Rozier out. Feel bad saying it. I like Rozier. His teammates like Rozier is well liked in the locker room. He's a good teammate. All that stuff is there. It's just not his season. It has not been his season. And the Heat, they need to figure out a way to win these games because every game is going to matter. These games obviously matter, but especially after the All-Star break when you're making that playoff push, you can't afford to dabble with lineups that just don't work anymore. And those Rozier lineups, these are just the numbers, right? It's not even an opinion. You just look at the numbers. Look at the lineup data out there on NBA.com, cleaning the glass. Miami's worst lineups are the ones with Rozier in them. And I don't really see it changing with Davion Mitchell or Andrew Wiggins and all these other guys in there. So it might be time for Miami, Erik Spoelstra, to go in a different direction. The Heat's defense will have their hands full, meanwhile, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We're going to talk about how they can defend him and more keys to win after this. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team is a free daily newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Heat newsletter, one stop for ultimate Heat and league coverage with local analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shear, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. All right, so before I get to what I think is going to be the key matchup in this game, just some stats here to show you, to illustrate exactly what the Heat are going up against. This is David versus Goliath stuff over here, okay? Over the last 10 games, the Thunder rank third in offensive rating and third in defensive rating. They're outscoring teams by a league-leading 15.2 points per 100 possessions. They are blowing teams out, okay? Chet Holmgren has gotten back, even though he's going to be out for this one. Didn't even mention that, I think, in the injury report stuff. But, yeah, no Chet Holmgren for the Thunder in this game. But without him, this team is still rolling. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, odds-on favorite for MVP, very much playing like it. We'll talk about him more in a second. But the Thunder are juggernauts. They have the best record in the NBA for a reason. They force a bunch of steals defensively, which is going to be a problem for Miami, especially with some sick ball handlers who might not be feeling 100%. Might be a little slow. Not have that first step, maybe a little brain fog, flu-related symptoms. Yikes. This has the potential to get ugly against this Oklahoma City Thunder defense. Meanwhile, the Heat, it's not been great for them. They've slipped to 28th in offensive rating and 15th in defensive rating over these last 10 games. Now, obviously, the Jimmy Butler saga, the distraction of that, a factor here. They're also playing a lot of those games without Jimmy Butler, and newsflash, they still don't have Jimmy Butler because they traded him before the deadline. Adding Wiggins, adding Mitchell, the cloud of the distraction dissipating here a little bit. Hopefully you could start playing a little bit better. But this Thunder team, you did it. You came back post deadline and post road trip to the Boston Celtics for one home game, and then you got to get on the road to face the Thunder. These are two of the best teams, two of the three favorites, including the Cleveland Cavaliers here. You come back and you have to face two of the favorites for the NBA championship this season. This is a tough stretch and a tough test for Miami. But over those last 10 games, the Heat have been getting outscored by 7.6 points per 100 possessions. I'll remind you of the Thunder number. They're beating teams by 15 points every 100 possessions. Miami's losing every 100 possessions by almost 8 points. That's a difference of nearly 23 points per 100 possessions. There is a reason the Thunder are heavily favored in this game. Okay? Here's the one interesting battleground, though. The offensive boards. The Thunder rank 5th in offensive rebounding rate, while Miami ranks 3rd in defensive rebounding rate. Boxing out, bodies on bodies, this stuff is going to be really important. Bam Adebayo and Kel'el Ware, they're going to have to be locked in this one. They're going to have to be locked into keeping Isaiah Hartenstein off the glass. No Chet Holmgren, that helps them a little bit, but the Thunder, with or without Holmgren, fly to the ball. They do a really good job of getting those offensive rebounds, creating those second chance points. And another little thing here, if Miami does decide to use zone in this game, that typically takes you out of position for defensive rebounding. So if Miami dabbles in zone, they could expose themselves to second chance points. So just something that Erik Spoelstra is going to have to think about. We'll talk a little bit more about why they might want to use zone against SGA here in a second, but just something to keep an eye on. The other part of this too, the flip side, the Thunder, not an awesome defensive rebounding team. Miami doesn't typically crash the boards and rely on offensive rebounds and second chance points. If I'm Erik Spoelstra, I'm saying we're going to change that tonight. We're going to be an offensive rebounding team. Let's look like the Houston Rockets. Let's look like the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's look like the Oklahoma City Thunder. Let's fly to the offensive glass. Even if that means we're not getting back defensively as much as we want, if we can get one or two back on defense and we're sending 2 to 3 at the offensive glass every time the Thunder put up a shot, that could be an opportunity for us, especially if the guy shooting is not Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If it's somebody else, because Shai is just so efficient that I don't know if it's even worth crashing the glass there, because more often than not, he just makes the basket. But if it's somebody else on the Thunder that's putting up that shot, if I'm Spoelstra, I'm saying, you know what, if you're close, if you're in the corner, crash. And I'm interested to see Andrew Wiggins here. Andrew Wiggins was a game changer on nights where he was an offensive rebounding factor in Golden State. I think specifically to their run to the championship a couple years ago. That Andrew Wiggins' rebounding was huge for that team, defensive and offensive. He's a guy that can grab you 2 or 3 offensive boards in a game, and he goes up and just puts it back, right? He'll go up with a tip in or a dunk and create some easy second chance opportunities, points out of nothing, and those points could be really helpful in keeping this game close. So keep an eye on the offensive glass when both teams are on offense. It's going to be an important battleground, I think, in this game. And if the Heat can come out on top on that, that can help maybe narrow the margin here. But let's talk a little bit more about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Whew. If you have not been watching Shai lately, I don't know what to tell you. When was the last time the Heat even played the Thunder here? They played them... is this the first time? No, they played them in December. December 20th, they played the Thunder. And let's see what Shai ended up with in that game. They lost the game 104-97. Shai had 25 points on 10 of 25 shooting. Not the best game. Hartenstein had 18 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds. Jalen Williams was the guy that killed him, 33 points in that game. Lou Dort had 14 points, including 4 or 5 from three-point range. And that was kind of the swing factor in that game, if we remember. Miami did a decent job bottling up Shai in that game. But this is a different Heat team than they were in December. Obviously, the trade deadline, things like that. Miami also slipping a little bit. Miami was playing good basketball at that point in the season. Not playing great basketball right now, and they're dealing with a lot of stomach bugs and things like that. But if anybody can devise a defensive scheme to slow this guy down, it's Spo. Shai's averaging a league-leading 32.6 points per game. All the advanced stats and the VORPs and the LeBron data, all this stuff off the charts with this guy. He is the odds-on favorite for MVP. I vote in the ESPN straw poll, that MVP straw poll that they do quarterly. I had SGA as my top guy. He deserves it. He's been the best player in the league this season. Now, what's interesting about Shai, not really a threat from three-point range. He'll pull up every once in a while. He's going to do most of his work driving to the basket. He averages a league-high 21.1 drives per game. And the Thunder generate points on 76% of those possessions. When Shai drives, the Thunder score. Whether that's Shai scoring or kicking it out to a teammate, and then they score off of him. When Shai drives, the Thunder score. They are dominant. They are dominant with Shai on the court. Miami's going to, first of all, have to take advantage. In those minutes that Shai is off the court, keep a close eye on those minutes. Miami has to win those minutes. It's just like playing Nikola Jokic in the Denver Nuggets. When Jokic is on the court, that's when you come back. That's when you narrow the gap. Maybe you take a lead. Those are the minutes where you win the game. You got to keep it close enough when their stars are on the court. You got to win those minutes when they're off the court. That's going to be key for Miami. Win those minutes where Shai is off the court. Can they do that? That's going to be huge. Then when Shai is on the court, this is going to be interesting. First Thunder possession of the game, I'm looking at who's guarding Shai. My best guess is Andrew Wiggins. Now, you could go Davion Mitchell here. I'll tell you why in a second. But mostly just because Davion plays point guard, Shai is Oklahoma City's point guard. So you could just match up positionally. I kind of like I kind of like Wiggins on Shai because I think you need Wiggins' length specifically on him. Shai isn't a guy that's going to bully you. He's strong. He's not going to bully you. So I think he's not going to get in the post and put his back to the basket. So I think Davion's kind of low center of gravity and that strength kind of wasted on Shai. I'd rather have Mitchell on Jalen Williams, who popped off for 33 points. He's more of that guy. I'd rather have Mitchell on him. And I'd rather have Wiggins kind of draped over Shai. Because Shai's wiggly. He's squirmy. Wiggins is more of a disciplined defender. And he could stay in front of him. And he's got that length to stay in front of him. And if he does, when Shai does kind of get loose a little bit, Wiggins at least has the length to react and recover. So I like that for him. Wiggins is going to have to stay out of foul trouble with Shai. Shai's got that pump fake, gets to the line 8 or 9 times a game. He's gonna have to not get baited into those fouls. Luckily, Wiggins has seen more of Shai than anybody on the Heat has over the last few seasons because they play him twice as much in the Western Conference. So if anybody's ready to play Shai on this Heat roster, and if anybody's ready to defend him, it's Andrew Wiggins. So that's an important factor too. He's got twice as much experience as anybody else on the Heat's roster. The other part of this too is because the Thunder are going to run a ton of pick and roll between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Isaiah Hartenstein or whoever their other bigs are on the floor at any given moment in this game. And how Miami responds to the pick and roll. What's the scheme to defend that? We know that they're going to switch it if Bam is involved in the action. So if you've got Bam on Hartenstein in certain pockets of this game, or if you've got Bam on another big or whatever it is, Miami's going to feel comfortable with having Bam switch out onto Shai. Bam is as good as it comes in terms of big men switching out into ball handlers. He can get cooked by Shai. Not saying he's going to bat 1,000 on this, but you feel comfortable. If Bam's in there at center, or if Bam's in the action, we can have him switch onto Shai. Now, if Bam and Ware are both in those minutes where Bam and Ware are on the court together, I'd expect Shai to target Ware in pick and roll and go to that guy and maybe stay away from Bam because you'd obviously rather go at the rookie and you'd rather avoid a world-class defender like Bam. So if Ware is involved in the action, I expect Miami to drop. Ware stays in drop coverage. That's going to be on Wiggins or whoever's guarding SGA in that moment to do a good job chasing Shai off, getting under that screen perhaps, and just making sure that if and when Shai does get into the paint, they're funneling them to Ware. And that's going to be a lot to ask for a couple of defenders who have played one game together so far. Because even we talk about chemistry offensively, there's chemistry defensively too. When you're talking about a guy playing in drop and perimeter defenders funneling guys to that drop defender, that stuff requires chemistry. Where do you want him? And obviously the scouting report. What hand do we want Shai going to and all these things too. So that's going to be important. But if Ware is in that drop, also ditto for him. Same thing I said to Andrew Wiggins. Khalil Ware, you cannot bite on that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander pump fake. Rook, don't bite on it. Do not foul. All right? I know it's in the scouting report. Pay attention to it. That's going to be huge. Here's the other thing, though. Do the Heat mix up their scheme to have Bam on Hartenstein, and then you have Khalil Ware as a help side defender? Because the reason Miami, part of the reason, a lot of reasons, but one of one of the things, I should say it this way, one of the things Miami can do now that you're starting the two bigs is Bam can be that help side defender. And we've seen him wreak havoc in that way. I'd be tempted to flip that in this game, though. Have Bam on Hartenstein, who is the primary pick and roll partner with Shai, and then you can at least switch that action and maybe flatten them out a little bit, flatten out the Thunder's offense a little bit. And then when Shai does get past it, inevitably, where is a help side defender? Maybe helping off of Lou Dort or something like that. And then he can maybe clean things up on the back end. Do we see Spo experiment? I would do it. This is one of the, like I said, that's more of a playoff type of strategy a little bit. And it's asking a lot for your rookie to kind of break the drop defense that he's been doing this whole time. I think Ware can actually thrive in that role. I like Bam switching. I like being able to, I like the temptation to try, or the threat to try to flatten out Oklahoma City's pick and roll offense and try to at least take that away. You're not going to take everything away. You got to try to take something away. And if you can take away the pick and roll and then make Shai work in isolation, if you're able to flatten that out and then Shai says, you know what, I don't even want the pick and roll anymore. I'm going to stop calling for the screen because Bam's on the other side of all these. I'm going to just try to work Wiggins one-on-one. Well, now you've just baited Oklahoma City into an isolation offense. And maybe that just defangs them a little bit here. And Shai could still do work in ISO. He's one of the best isolation players. I think he's the best one-on-one scorer in the league right now. So he could still do his work. But it does defang the rest of Oklahoma City's offense a little bit if you kind of limit the offense to just that. And the other thing I mentioned before a little bit, the zone defense, there's going to be, if Shai gets on a roll here, a temptation by Erik Spoelstra to go to zone, try to cramp the paint, send guys to the paint, have everybody with a foot in the paint, in the lane at all times to try to limit Shai. I would personally avoid that until Shai gets on a heater. If Shai scores 2-3 times in a row, then maybe go to a zone. But I just think that leaves you a little bit too vulnerable to second chance points from Isaiah Hartenstein and some of these other guys crashing the offensive glass. Zone to me will be tempting. I still expect Erik Spoelstra to dabble in it. Maybe that's something when Hartenstein is off the court, that's when you go to it. Maybe that's where the zone comes into play here. But it'll be interesting to see how Spo uses this and what kind of scheme he dials up defensively. How does FanDuel think this one's going to play out? Best bets are next. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Best way to support the show, like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. David and I will be back after the game with our post-game reactions. As a reminder, if you're not a Locked On Heat insider, you could sign up with the link in the show notes. That's your chance to ask questions for the post-game show. It's free for 14 days, $4.99 a month after that. What does FanDuel think? FanDuel has the Thunder as 14-point favorites in this game, and that makes sense. Everything I laid out, think about this entire episode. You've got to stop the favorite to win MVP, a juggernaut of a team on their home court. And the Heat are going to be potentially without several key rotation players, working in new guys after the trade deadline. And they're not playing well. Yeah, 14 points, that sounds about right. Everything is on Miami. If the Thunder just come in and play an average game, they're going to win this game. Maybe not by 14 points, but they'll win this game. The Heat have to play an awesome game to keep this one close. So the Thunder, 14-point favorites. That one makes sense to me. It's also a big line. That's a big spread. Personally, I'd stay away from it. It's a big spread. This Heat team is so weird, man. They are so confusing. They lose to, they keep a lot of these games close. Good teams, bad teams. This team loves to play a clutch game. I would not bet the Heat to win this game. Right? Like, that is not money that I want to risk. All right? I also wouldn't bet on them to lose by 14 points. I understand the spread. I think that it could not be smaller than this. But I'll never bet on the Heat. They find ways to keep these games close, and you just never know. So this is to me the spread. That to me is a stay away. FanDuel also does this thing. It's called a 4-leg same game parlay. What they do is they generate it automatically, and they have one just right there on the homepage. It's really cool. And it takes like 4 different things that have to go right. If all 4 go right, then you win the bet. If one of them doesn't go right, then you lose the bet. So their 4-leg same game parlay has the Oklahoma City Thunder winning just the money line. So no spread. They just have them as winners. Shai scoring 30 or more points. Bam scoring 20 or more points. And Isaiah Hartenstein grabbing 12 or more rebounds. And if you bet $10, you win $75.18. I like that. That feels, and if that's how this game plays out, I think the Thunder win, but I don't think they win by 14, which is why you go money line over the spread here. So you're just taking the Thunder as a straight winner. Shai scoring 30 points, that's a good bet no matter what the defense is. He is that good. We've talked about the rebounding battle. I think Hartenstein's going to be very involved there. That is his job on this team right now. Miami has struggled a little bit with rebounding lately. Bam, he's your number one option right now if Tyler Hero can't go. Andrew Wiggins kind of still trying to figure him out. And Bam's been scoring lately. And I'll be interested to see here, who does Hartenstein guard to start the game? So we talked about the Thunder's first possession and what Miami's defense looks like. What does Oklahoma City's defense look like on Miami's first possession? Do they put, if Hartenstein is on where, if they just go size with size, that's going to leave Jalen Williams or somebody smaller to have to guard Bam. I could see first basket of the game, and there was pretty good odds on Bam scoring Miami's first bucket of the game. Maybe that's if you want to go a player prop, maybe that's the way to go here. Because if they do that, the Heat will feed Bam right away, get him into the post, and he'll shoot over a smaller defender. But I can also see, okay, Mark Dagnall's a really good coach of the year last year, really smart. I could see him anticipating that and just saying, you know what, let's go ahead and put Hartenstein on Bam, and then we trust a guy like Lou Dort or somebody like that to body up Kel'el Ware, because we're not worried about his strength, even though we're worried about his size. Maybe we can just kind of put a forearm into his back and just keep him out of the paint. So that's what I'm looking at. Oklahoma City on defense, Miami, their first offensive possession. Who's guarding Bam? Who's guarding Ware? Do the Thunder get creative and just put a small on Ware and then have Hartenstein guard Bam and try to take Bam out of the game that way? Or are they worried about the rebounding part of this that we've already discussed? Have Hartenstein on Ware and then just ask a smaller player to try to guard Bam. And then maybe they just say, you know what? If Bam gets his points, that's okay. We just got to limit everybody else, control the glass, and maybe they go that way. So there is an opportunity here for Bam to score those 20-plus points, for Hartenstein to grab those 12-plus rebounds. To me, Shai getting 30-plus, Oklahoma City winning the game. Those feel like the safest parts of this parlay. So up to you. But for now, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. We will be back after the game with our post-game reactions. Like and comment, subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.